appointing new ones every 6 months, it seems.
Yep.
Okay, we'll get
New
started.
Jersey had 20. I'm sorry, Alex?
No, I was just going to say we'll get started and we'll do our going. I'm sorry if I cut you off, Thomas. And a couple of people joining us, I think, momentarily. Can you let folks in?
I
Wendy?
am. I got
Thank
it.
you. Okay, good morning, all. This is May 5th. Thank you for Cinco de Mayo. Thank you for joining us. And today we're going to hear from Mr. Doug Rowe about COVID-19 employment-related issues, which is a very timely topic. Thank you, Doug, for joining us today to give this presentation. And before we hear from Doug, what we're going to do is our usual go round where we'll each just do a brief introduction of ourselves for those of us who don't know each other. And I urge you all to put your contact information in the chat window. Also, as long as you don't object, Doug, what we do at the end of these meetings is I send out a copy of the recording to the group members and let me know if there's any issue with that.
No problem.
But I do that by default unless otherwise instructed. So Wendy, please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry, my noisy introduction, but I am Wendy Gennaro, and I'm the Director of Development at Queens Centers for Progress.
Okay, my name is Alex Corneos, and I'm a consultant to QCP, working with Wendy and Sean, who is also on the call with QCP Development. Steve.
Stephen Karp, Variable Promotions. We are full-service commercial printers, as well as distributors or suppliers of promotional items.
Thank you. Sean.
John Rafferty from WatchGuard 24/7. I'm the owner of a full-service security guard company, providing security guards, concierges, and fire safety directors to residential and commercial markets.
Thank you. Ben Horowitz.
Hello, everybody. Benjamin Horowitz, CEO, BSB Consultant, specializing in group health insurance for organizations that have 2 employees up to a couple thousand.
Thank you. Hi, Sonia. I'm not going to say it.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back.
How about that? How about that? Good morning, everyone. Sonia, Uplifting Nonprofits, and it's my pleasure and joy to help nonprofit leaders fundraise to the best end of their abilities.
Thank you. Jerry Schwartz.
Good morning, all. Jerry Schwartz, Jerry the Geek, for all your computer needs. I do computer repair and support for small businesses and homeowners, either in person or virtually. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mara.
Good morning, guys. I can just get up and shut up because I'm wearing my favorite t-shirt. Can you see this? Cruise Planners, American Express Travel Representative. Okay, that's it. I have a travel agency, full service franchise, all kinds of travel, individual, group, land, cruises.
Thank you. I didn't notice if any of those cities was beneath the equator, but we'll leave it above the equator for.
And that's what you call equator today, right?
Thomas Farrell.
Thanks, Alex. Good morning, folks. I'm a business law attorney specializing in contracts and regulatory matters, including giving business owners advice about how to avoid discriminating or otherwise adversely affecting members of protected classes.
Protecting us against the bureaucracy. Jacqueline Rainian, thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jackie Harunian. I'm a partner in a family law firm, Wisselman, Harunian and Associates. I think this is my first meeting, right? I don't know how I ended up getting invited, but I'm happy to be here. And I know some of you, and my firm offers a free consultation if anyone has a family law issue.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Tony Foy.
Hello, my name is Tony Foy. I work with LaGuardia Community College in their LaGuardia Performing Arts Center. I am the Education and Community Outreach Coordinator.
Thank you, Tony. Nancy Vargas.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Nancy Vargas, CEO of DH2 Chauffeur Transportation. Our great love and passion is to provide safe and private ground transportation services. We carry everything from a sedan, SUV, Sprinter van, shuttle buses. So the next time you need to head to the airport, think of DH2, or if you're going to a group event, winery, or brewery tour, this is what we do. Thank you.
Martin Richards.
Hello, sorry, trying to unmute. Martin Ridges, MKR Specialty Insurance and Farmers Insurance Group, commercial insurance broker, and I can help protect you from polar bears, whether in business or personal. And and that is a real polar bear looking in a car in Germany. So anyway, so I can help you out with your insurance needs, including how to use price indemnity insurance and promotional companies to help generate revenue, and right, not just to protect you from losses. Anyway, Martin Ridges, MKR Specialty, Farmers, safeguard your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Rachel, welcome back.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Rachel Kellner, and I'm the co-owner of Eigner Chocolates. We are one of the oldest chocolate shops here in New York City, and we help our clients make an impression and build relationships by offering year-round corporate gifting. All of our chocolate is made in-house using antique equipment.
Thank you. Somebody named M. Anscombe. No? Okay. Tress. Good morning, Tress.
Good morning, one and all. I'm Tress, one of the moms at Mom's Kitchens NYC. We're situated in Queens, New York. We specialize in fresh baked breads, brownies, and cookies. And we have a great Mother's Day special with our purple boxes, which you can fill with anything delicious for mom. Thank you.
Thank you. And Josie.
Good morning. Happy
morning.
Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
Yes.
My name is Yoseni Tineo. I am a wedding planner. We plan all kinds of events, not only weddings, we also do social events, as well as corporate events. And one thing that we do as well is that we plan and coordinate anybody that needs to do a virtual event. We are here to support anybody. If anybody has questions, please just reach me out.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said, Mr. Rowe is going to be giving a presentation about COVID-19 employment-related issues. So Doug, take it away. I'll spotlight you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Sure. So Doug Rowe, I'm a partner in the law firm Sir Tillman Ballin. I head the labor and employment law practice group. Thanks for inviting me, Nancy Vargas. It's good seeing those who I know already, which is Ben, Nancy, Jackie, maybe Wendy, and it's good meeting the others. As I said, I practice labor and employment law, and pre-COVID, the main practice areas were wage and hour litigation and audits, discrimination, defense, restrictive covenant litigation, non-compete, non-solicitation agreements. All of a sudden with COVID, literally COVID-19 employment law is a completely new area of law. So there have been about a dozen new laws that have been enacted over the last year. We started out with, layoffs and furloughs when businesses shut down. Then we got involved in PPP loan forgiveness issues. Then when companies started to reopen, we had return to work issues, and just on and on. And in the meantime, the courts closed. So on top of, we converted sort of into a consulting, practice, with the courts essentially shut down. This practice area converted to receiving phone calls on employment related issues, a dozen calls a day. Employers literally, it's almost impossible to keep up with all the laws. By way of example, early this year, New York passed a new law requiring employers to provide at least 5 sick days to their employees. That's all well and good, but there's also another law that was passed last year called the COVID-19 sick leave law, entitling employees to maybe 5 sick days for being quarantined from COVID-related illness, but it could be employees could be entitled to at least 3 different sick leaves under the COVID-19 sick leave law. And the COVID-19 sick leave law absences don't get applied to the New York State sick leave law absences. So it's very confusing. Even companies that have full-time HR directors are hard pressed to figure out how to comply with all these laws. With that said, we are in the midst of, perhaps reopening. I know Mayor de Blasio in the last few weeks said he expects businesses to be reopen. He wants the city to reopen as of July 1st. Whether he's empowered to do that is a different issue. I've seen surveys where many employers are actually expecting maybe half of their employees to return to work by September. Many will do so on a hybrid basis. So perhaps, some employees will work from home, some employees will come in and they'll have a staggered schedule. So that's what things look like as of right now. So, just as a general reminder, and we've talked about this, we talked about this when businesses reopened several months ago. So we've gone through a back to work checklist. So, I'll just throw out a few of these issues before I get to the material that I handed out. So, for returning to work to the office, employers have to remember that safety protocols still apply, that PPE should be considered being used in the workplace, that social distancing should continue to be recognized, that health screening should be applied on a regular basis. Safety and health is the paramount important issue in returning to work. Recall procedures. So, employers have to remember that if they recall their employees to come back to work, they have to do it in a non-discriminatory manner. It can't be based upon age or sex or national origin. Employers are not permitted to make assumptions that certain employees should not return to work based upon being part of the vulnerable population. So, for example, an employee who may be in his or her 70s, there should not be an assumption that that employee would be more vulnerable to being exposed to and having an illness from COVID-19. Also, pregnant employees, for example, may be perceived as being more vulnerable, but employers are not permitted to make any assumptions based upon that pregnancy. Employee benefits. Employers should reconnect with their insurance brokers to make sure that the insurances are in place. What we've seen is, and most people have heard about this issue, but you have many employees who filed for unemployment when they were laid off. They didn't want to come back to work because they were receiving more in unemployment insurance benefits than they would be receiving if they returned to work and were employed on a full-time basis. So many of them have been removed from their health insurance benefits. So employers, when they have their employees return to work, should make sure that they connect with their health insurance brokers to make sure that they are reinstituted on the health insurance plans. Remote work. Many employers have permitted their employees to work from home. I'm going to touch upon the many different issues regarding working from home. When employers recall their employees, they may find that many employees object to returning to work physically and to return to work in the office for a variety of reasons that may be based upon a disability, which employers will have to recognize and perhaps engage in an interactive process to determine whether the employee can work from home or whether the employee should be required to come in to perform the work. There could be an objection based upon, there could be a religious objection as well. So, employers do have to honor and recognize the request for an accommodation and determine whether the essential functions of the job can be performed at home. So these are, this is an important issue for employers when they have their employees return to work physically, whether some of the work can be performed at home as well. There may be policy changes. Employee handbooks should be updated. It's important when you have an employee handbook to deal with it's really a new world in how employers are dealing with their employees. As I said, many employers are having their employees work on a hybrid basis, coming in half-time and working half-time from home. So employee handbooks should be adjusted from a compliance issue. Most of the employment laws, notwithstanding that the employee is working from home, will continue to be applied to the employment relationship. Sexual harassment training will still have to be done on an annual basis, even though the employee is working from home. That employee still is required to have a sexual harassment training, even though they are working from home. So I do want to talk about working from home and the minefields for employers, because there are so many hidden problems with employees working from home. By way of example, if an employee comes to work and they punch a time clock, you know what time they start, they punch out at the end of the day, you know what time they finish, they're paid for all their hours, they're an hourly employee, they're paid for all their hours, they're paid for overtime if their hours exceed 40 for the week, and that's an easy issue to deal with. However, when an employee works from home, employees sometimes feel that they don't have to comply with any particular schedule, that they can work a few hours in the morning, take a break, take the kids to school, work a few hours in the afternoon, take another break to make dinner, work some hours at night, work some hours at 2 in the morning, work hours on weekends, and all of a sudden, an employer is faced with a situation where they really have no idea how many hours that employee worked during the week. In the meantime, what if that employee is keeping track of their hours? And what if those hours, exceed 40 or 50 or 60, and all of a sudden the employer is faced with, a situation where the employee is claiming that they had all this off the clock work that they now have to pay for, and they now have significant liability. Now let's multiply that, by the way, by the number of employees who may be performing their work in the same manner. So it's important for employers who permit their employees to work from home to track their time, to require that their employees certify their time on a daily basis, to set schedules, to make sure that the employees comply with those schedules, to establish boundaries with the employee's work. If an employee does need to take time off, to run an errand or take care of one of their kids, employers should be aware of that and should be willing to accommodate, but to make sure that the employee is paid for all hours work. Employers should remember that when their employees work from home, as I said before, all the employment laws continue to apply. So employees are entitled to meal periods, at least a half hour for office workers every day. So an employer should remind the employee that they're entitled to, and they should take a meal period on a daily basis. Otherwise, the employer can be exposed to liability by not permitting their employees to take a meal period. There's a unique law in New York called spread of hours pay. Spread of hours, under the spread of hours pay regulations, employers are required to pay their employees an extra hour at the minimum wage for every day their hours exceed 10. And that doesn't mean 10 working hours. It could mean where their hours extend beyond 10 in a day, the employees are entitled to an extra hour at the minimum wage. There could be offsets if their hourly rate exceeds the minimum wage. Employee might, depending on the industry, the employee might be entitled to a credit against that minimum wage requirement. But let's play out the scenario I mentioned before, where the employee works 2 hours in the morning, takes a 3-hour break, works 2 hours in the afternoon, takes a 5-hour break, and works 3 hours at night. Well, adding all those numbers together, that employee's hours exceeded 10, even though the employee may only have worked 8 hours in a day. So the employer could find themselves in a position to have liability for spread of hours pay under that scenario. So again, another reason why it's that important for employers to keep track of their hours and make sure that their employees comply with whatever the set schedule is, as much as possible. Employers should be reminded that they should pay attention to expenses that employees may incur. So if an employee goes out and has to buy a printer, arguably, if the employee is not reimbursed for the cost of that printer, or even a printer cartridge, or even paper that's being used in furtherance of the employment, that's all required to be reimbursed. And if the employer is not reimbursing the employee for expenses incurred in accordance with their position, then they are potentially facing a claim of unlawful deduction or minimum wage violation. So again, it's important for employers to be aware of this. And by the way, the awareness of all these issues when employers are permitting their employees to work from home really has to trickle down from the owner of the company or the CFO of the company to the supervisors or the managers who are actually supervising the employees who are working from home. So these issues should require some level of training so the supervisors know that they should, again, be aware of these issues so the employer doesn't run afoul of the wage and hour laws in New York State. Employers are required to give their employees notices of minimum wage laws or workers' comp laws or the paid family leave laws. Well, there is now a mechanism that the poster requirements can be satisfied through electronic means, but again, it's something to be aware of for employers as well. And as I said before, there should be a separate working from home policy that should be updated in their employee handbook. I'm going to touch again upon one of the big issues in discrimination law with working from home, which is that, once the employers now are calling their employees back to work and asking their employees to work in the office again, an employee may request an accommodation to continue to work from home. An employee is not entitled as a matter of law to have that accommodation honored. If the accommodation is based upon a disability or age or sex or national origin or religion, then the employer would be obligated to engage in the interactive process with the employee, which is to have a discussion with the employee about whether the employee can perform the essential functions of the job at home, and whether whether granting the accommodation would have a threat to the employer's business. So this is the analysis that has to be undertaken when an employee requests a reasonable accommodation to continue to work from home. And by the way, it's not sufficient for the employee to request an accommodation because they're fearing contracting COVID in the workplace. That's not, if they have a generalized fear, that's not sufficient to allow them to receive and accommodation. So it's something to consider as well. Employers should be aware that with respect to reviewing requests for accommodation to continue to work from home, the employer has to make sure that they don't treat the employees differently because of their age or sex or national origin or religion. That the employer can analyze their needs and the employee's duties in evaluating working from home requests, and they can deny a request for one person and grant it for another person as long as it's based upon the needs of the business. So again, it's something to be aware of in order to avoid discrimination claims. Health and safety remains an issue. So even though an employee may be working from home, the employee's home is considered to be the workplace. So by way of example, as we all know, employers have to provide workers' compensation insurance for their employees. But when the workplace is the home, the workers' comp laws cover that workplace. So if an employee is injured while walking to the bathroom, when they work from home, that's conceivably a workers' comp claim. So again, the employer should be aware and make sure that their workers' comp policies will cover the injuries in the home workplace. Also, when an employee may receive a visitor, a work-related visitor to the home, the employer wants to make sure that their general liability insurance policies will cover the home as well if there's an injury to a visitor in the home that's a work-related issue. I'll just mention that to this group that everybody should make sure that they keep, I think his name is Jerry, the computer repair and the IT person in the group, because cyber security and trade secrets are an important issue. So when employees are working from home, they're usually working on their own computer, and employers have to make sure that the computers that are being used by the employees have sufficient protection in them to protect the employees' confidential information and trade secrets. So again, it's an important issue for employers to be aware of. And last topic on that in working from home is that, employers obviously will want to make sure that they're receiving the productivity while their employees are working from home. Employers are entitled to monitor their employees' work. It's best practice for employers to notify their employees that they have the right to monitor the work, that they will monitor the work, that they'll monitor the work through electronic means. We've had some clients who have actually set up a camera that faces the monitor, and the employer at any given time during the day can actually see what the employee is working on to make sure the employee is actually working. So again, there is software out there that employers can utilize to make sure their employees are working. So related now, though, to returning to work is the vaccines and the requirement of vaccines. In December, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission came out with guidance that essentially states that employers are permitted to require that their employees receive vaccines before they come back to work. So that's, if employers implement that policy, it's not deemed to be a violation of the discrimination laws because it's not considered to be a medical exam under the Americans with Disabilities Act. But there are exceptions, of course. If an employee objects to receiving the vaccine based upon a disability or based upon a valid religious objection, then again, the employer would have to engage in the interactive process and perhaps entitle the employee to come back to work without a vaccine, or permit the employee to work from home under those circumstances. Can an employee be terminated for refusing to receive the vaccine? The answer is maybe. You know, that's what lawyers say, maybe. But you know, whether the employee can be terminated is one thing. The employer, for a period of time, can merely refuse to permit the employee to come back to work unless they're vaccinated. I haven't seen any case law on this issue, but you know, the vaccines have been issued under the FDA's emergency use authorization, and under the emergency use authorization, written notice of the vaccine, of what's in the vaccine, is required to be given to all recipients of the vaccine. And in the notice, it also says that the person receiving the vaccine can refuse to receive the vaccine. So I'm not sure what would happen if an employee refused to receive the vaccine because of the FDA emergency use authorization notice, which could fly in the face of the EEOC regulations, which entitle employers to mandate vaccines. We have this issue almost on a daily basis now, with employers having their employees return to work and wondering whether they can mandate the vaccines. Some employers are coming out with a policy requiring the vaccinations. But in the alternative, if an employee refuses the vaccination, then the employers are, and they're entitled to do this as well, are requiring the employees to receive weekly COVID tests to determine whether they're positive or not. So that's another scenario that exists as well. There are potential workers' comp issues in vaccines. What if an employee under a mandatory vaccination program gets sick from the vaccination? Again, that's a claim that could be covered by the workers' comp laws. So that's just another consideration of mandatory vaccinations as well. Some employers are offering financial incentives for receiving the vaccine. As many of you may have heard, New York State now entitles employees to up to 4 hours paid time off to receive the vaccine, to receive each of the vaccines. But some employers are offering actually additional incentives aside from that. It could be additional time off. It could be a gift card, something modest in nature, but financial incentives are permissible to a limited degree under the EEOC regulations. You know, high-level issues for mandatory vaccination programs are, this issue really doesn't exist anymore, because now I think everybody is permitted to receive a vaccine. Because of the slow rollout, because of the timing, it was difficult to require mandatory vaccination programs that would come out at the same time. But now it seems like everybody can receive a vaccine. There's an administrative burden on employers now to keep track of the vaccinations. If they roll out if an employer rolls out a mandatory vaccination program, the employer has to come up with some kind of reporting mechanisms to make sure that all employees are complying with the mandatory vaccination program. And, you know, then to come up with a plan to deal with how to respond to employee refusals, which has happened and we know will continue to happen. So this is the general overview of what we see as the big issues in COVID-19 law, COVID-19 sick leave law, and vaccinations and getting employees back to work. Does anybody have any questions?
Absolutely. Let me just go back here. Thank you very much. That was fascinating. You've just given me, if I were an employer, at least 100 reasons why I'd want everybody back in the office ASAP to avoid all that liability. She's walking to the bathroom and then having a workers' comp claim. Oh my God. Anybody with questions?
Doug, I have a
Jerry, you actually did have a question. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yes, a great point about the type security. Just wondering, do the employers have to supply the proper cybersecurity for the home computer, or is it responsibility of the employee?
It would be the responsibility of the employee, but it seems that it would be in the employer's best interest if the employee is working on confidential, proprietary, and trade secret information to do whatever they can do to make sure that that information is protected. So, you know, it's really a very significant issue, you know, and you know, it's not really touched upon that much, but it really is incumbent upon the employer to protect, you know, their trade secrets in any way possible. They do it in the office. They just need to do it, you know, in the home office.
Yeah, exactly. It's a home office, so it's an extension of the office itself. So you would think that the employer, as you just say, have in their best interest to make sure everything's protected.
Right.
That's my thought. But if it's an employee, then they should be getting guidance from the employer what they need to be put on there.
They should receive guidance. Yeah, that should be part of the employer's policy, and the employer should have the ability to go into the employee's computer, you know, while they're working from home, to see what they're working on and to see if they're sufficiently protected through their IT department or, you know, companies like yours.
Exactly. That's what I was thought. So
right.
Martin, you had a question?
Hopefully it's more on the cyber liability issues and workers' compensation. Actually, the issue with respect to the employers face is what their data is their issue, whether the employee is in Africa, home, or wherever they happen to be. And that is 100% the employer's issue, not the employees. The aspect that the employers then are working on is whether, so then they're talking about machinery. Is the machine theirs, you know, or is it the employees, etc. And there's, with the companies I work with, there's a mix of how people feel about that. But at the end of the day, if you stipulate that the machinery is the employees, then you do not have any rights to access that machine at all. You can monitor them through a portal, but you cannot monitor that machine. So there is a real big issue there. If the machine is the employer's, now they can monitor what goes on that machine. With respect to workers' compensation, yes, it is important to look at some of the different acts and things that are going through the states right now. And you can watch a lot on ny.gov and get constant notifications of different regulations and things that are going through as well, to talk with your attorney about and your insurance broker. I would say the biggest issue that most employers don't have in place right now is they don't have employee practices liability coverage. So then if they do get sued, they can only rely on paying their attorney without any financial support. And then and cyber liability. There's a consistent increase of over 150% year on year against small to medium-sized businesses. And people keep thinking it's the credit cards issues, credit card companies issue. I can tell you 100% of all businesses I've asked if they've ever read the credit card contract. Not one of them have ever read it. So there's just an assumption, and we all know what assumptions means, even in legal terms, right?
Thank you. Further questions?
But,
Oh, John, go ahead.
Doug, great presentation. I just got a question, two questions for you. So you said you can report back into the office. I mean, that, unless they have a disability or religious objection, but can you change their job function if they refuse to come back to the office and just give them another job that, that you're comfortable with then, because they're not back in the office?
The answer is, well, I'm not sure what the question, you broke up a little bit. So,
okay. So if somebody does not want to get the vaccine, they're not coming back into the office, can you change their job function or from a different job where they're out in the field, that they're not back in the office? Is that something that you can do?
You can yes, you could do that as long as you're not doing it because of a disability. You're not doing it in a discriminatory manner. So yes, you can do that. But then if they have another objection based upon disability, based upon that job change, and based upon a disability, you still have to go through the interactive process of determining whether they're entitled to a reasonable accommodation based upon the new position you've offered them.
Right. And then one last question, and you may say it's more for a CPA, or I'm just kind of curious if you see anything. We have over 500 employees, but we get no discounts unless you have under 500 employees. There's no tax benefits. All of these 4-hour clips that you're paying people, now you're paying another person 4 hours to cover their shift. Do you see any incentives or tax breaks coming for companies that are over 500 employees?
The 500 employee tax breaks, you're talking about the FFCRA from last year.
It just seemed like there's all these COVID breaks for companies under 500, but if you're over 500, you're getting nothing, it seems.
Yeah,
so I was just kind of curious if you
the FFCRA, which was the federal law that came out last year, actually expired at the end of 2020. It permitted employers to continue, but it didn't continue it for employers with over 500 employees. So no, I don't see anything for companies your size.
I also think politically on that side, the banks and everybody was slammed for giving money away to large corporations with the first PPP that went through and squeezing out the smaller businesses. So the latest PPP thing that went through in breaks really tried to exclude big business.
Right.
Doug, I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion? This is more, I guess, not really a question, but your feeling about it, between the balance between the laws that are in place and the regulations that are in place to protect the employer versus those of the employee. Because listening to you, I got a sense that the employers are really on the defensive in most cases. What's your opinion about that? The balance.
I've been practicing labor and employment law for close to 40 years. And when I first started in this business, it was all about employer rights. Employers had the right to terminate employees. We had the discrimination laws that were there that we had to worry about, but otherwise there was really, employers had the power. Over the last, 10, 15 years, it's shifted significantly. It used to be California would carry the day on any, new employee protection laws. Everything that happens in California now comes over here. Between New York and New Jersey, they're all protecting, all the new laws are protecting employees. There's a new law, for example, that was enacted in 2011. It's called the Employee Wage Theft Protection Act, all right? It assumes that employers steal from their employees. Think about the name of the statute, all right? It's shifted so much now that every law is to protect the employees. Whether it be from a wage and hour standpoint to a social standpoint with all these new leave laws, they're all there to protect employees. And they will continue to do so.
So Doug, a question, I could be completely off here, but all businesses have to be ADA compliant for their employees. Now, if you have employees that are working from home and something happens to that employee, and they are no longer able to go up their steps into their home and something has to be done at the house to essentially help make it ADA work compliant, who has to foot the bill on that?
So as part of the analysis of whether that would constitute a reasonable accommodation, cost is evaluated. And the legal question is whether the cost to create that working environment would create an undue burden on the employer. And that is where you get into the financial analysis. So if you have IBM that has to refit the employee's house, it won't be an issue. But if you have a small company like BSB Consultants, it may be, you may not have to foot that bill. So it's really just going to be a function of whether that requirement creates an undue burden on you.
Got it.
I just wanted to jump in and say, Doug, that was really an excellent presentation, and law is so specialized, and I had no idea there were all these things going on in labor and employment, and it just goes to show that if you have a question, you have to go to someone with expertise, and not a family lawyer or a real estate lawyer. Go to a labor lawyer. Thanks, Doug. That was great.
Yeah. You know, it seems to me too, Doug, that a lot of people were working from home prior to the pandemic. So a lot of these issues were relevant even then. I mean, aside from the issues related to vaccination, maybe the safety of travel and so forth, what are the new aspects of law that affect the employer-employee relationship when the employee is working at home? Well, I don't know if I'm making myself clear or not, but there's an additional layer now that's been added because of the pandemic, but there were many people who were working at home prior to the pandemic. That really is not going to change.
Yeah, I mean, if the pandemic never happened, most of these issues would be the same. The need for security in their IT, the wage and hour issues, tracking the time and paying the employees for all their time worked. So yeah, the answer is that it really hasn't changed. So the new laws are really, the laws that protect employees based upon COVID-19 if they get quarantined, when the laws first were enacted, all the schools were shutting down, and employees were entitled to time off, because for that reason alone, because the school closings. What other laws? So yeah, it's really just the leave laws, the quarantine laws, but you're right that these laws, most of what I've mentioned today, were in effect prior to COVID.
Thomas, would you mind chiming in? You always have a few choice things to say about the bureaucracy of laws and how that's multiplied since COVID. So would you mind just adding or augmenting what Doug has said?
I think, first of all, Doug is entirely right about none of this being very new except for the leave laws. And the leave laws themselves are complicated. And, there was a New York State paid family leave law in existence already, which many employers didn't even know about. And so now they have to come conversant with that. I want to ask Doug about something else, though. With all the movement of employees, including senior employees, Doug, do you see a lot, like a wave of litigation or disputes about trade secrets and the protection of trade secrets and confidential information? Because that's one of my concerns.
I do. I see it on a regular basis. I mean, it's really, it's first of all, it's so easy for an employee today to walk out with trade secrets, whether they download customer lists or whether they send themselves emails. It's just and it's all traceable. I mean, employees can't get away with it. So we've seen many claims. I'm involved in one right now where my client suspects that a former employee is actually a false whistleblower, and they're in the medical field and they're reporting certain conduct to the FDA, New York State Department of Health, et cetera, and we can't identify who it's coming from. So we've brought in, IT specialists to see if they can track the employees so we can sue the employee and hopefully get an injunction. But again, I see this, more frequently, and I think that it really almost requires employers to actually, bolster their policies, their employee handbook policies, and make sure employees are aware that, their work is going to be monitored and their computer usage will be monitored. We have employee handbooks with this computer usage provisions, but, they're just buried in there, but they really should be, in the front, and, the importance of that policy should really be a constant reminder in order for the employer to properly protect their trade secrets.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions? Doug, thank you very kindly. It was really, really fascinating and scary at the same time. Wendy, Wendy has an announcement about a event that takes place.
So first of all, Doug, thank you, and I think I figured out how I know you, so I don't want to embarrass you. I'm kidding, but I believe we lived around the corner from each other, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I'll have to share it now because I have to clear this up. Yes. So if you had kids and they loved Halloween, then the corner of Ocean and Smith Lane was like the most amazing house on Halloween. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
That was my house.
You were on Ocean and Smith?
Yes, we were neighbors.
How about that?
Yep. I knew, I knew I would figure it out. So it's good to see you, and it's lovely to have you here and see how life brings you around to people in very strange ways. Yes. But that was a long time ago.
I must have trick-or-treated. I must have trick-or-treated at your house then.
Did you, Ben?
Probably.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was the witch. I was my house was the Halloween house in the neighborhood. I went over the top. I actually started the trend in the neighborhood for Halloween, just so everybody knows. But
does she have any liability issues?
That's for another session.
Oh boy. And then I have to say, one year I stopped and I handed out UNICEF boxes and asked the kids to go collect money. That was my thing. Anyway, so it's good to see you, Doug. But yeah, I want to make an announcement. I hope if everyone's available on Friday, we're starting something new. We're working with Northwell Health, this woman, Annette, who will speak to us probably in the next coming weeks about what Northwell does. But they offer this amazing lecture series for free to businesses to share with their employees and to educate their employees on different health issues. So we are having an event on Friday. It's lunchtime at 12 o'clock on the 7th. We have Dr. Jennifer McKelvey, who will be speaking about stress management and rekindling your flame during COVID-19. So we're really excited about it and excited to hold these lectures once a month probably, and that's in conjunction with our Friday group, which is called Q Chat with QCP. It's like a coffee club, and it's just a place where people can come hang out and talk. So I'll send out information, and Sean, thank you for putting the link is now in the chat. So we hope to see some of you there.
Thank you.
And thank everybody, as always, for being here. It was a great information, Doug.
Thank you.
Doug, thank you very kindly. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next week, and I'll post the recording shortly. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good day.
Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Tress, we need a one. Oh, she's gone. Bye, Jerry.
Yeah, take care. Okay. Bye.